The Sega Genesis, home to some of the most intense, stylish, and downright brutal boss battles in gaming history. While Nintendo had its fair share of legendary fights, Genesis bosses were on another level, pushing players to the limit with insane difficulty, epic designs, and unforgettable music. These battles weren't just about button mashing. They demanded skill, patience, and sometimes a whole lot of continues. Today, we're counting down the top 10 most epic Sega Genesis boss battles of all time. Let's go. Number 10. Kaiser Greedy in Ristar. Ristar may not be as famous as Sonic, but its final boss is no joke. Kaiser Greedy is a massive, floating tyrant, the power-hungry dictator behind all the chaos across 6 planets. As the ultimate villain, he attacks with black orbs, lasers, and even artificial black holes with just a flick of his finger. You'll need quick reflexes to dodge attacks and strike his weak spot while the game throws everything it has left at you. A final showdown worthy of this underrated gem. Number 9. The Vortex Queen in Ecco the Dolphin. Who knew a game about a dolphin could have one of the most terrifying final bosses ever? The Vortex Queen is a massive, alien parasite that looks straight out of a sci-fi horror nightmare. The fight takes place inside her lair, where you have to dodge tentacles, laser beams, and swarms of enemies while trying to blast her weak point. The creepy atmosphere and insane difficulty make this one of the most unforgettable fights on the Genesis. Number 8. Scar in the Lion King. You might not expect a Disney game to have a brutal boss fight, but Scar in the Lion King is on another level. This is not a simple jump-on-the-head boss. You have to throw him off Pride Rock while avoiding his deadly claws and brutal attacks. And if you mess up, he throws you off first. The cinematic feel, the intense platforming, and that final slow-motion takedown make this one of the most epic showdowns in any Genesis game. Number 7. Wolfganblood Garopa in Alien Soldier. You knew treasure games had to be on this list. Alien Soldier is already one of the hardest Genesis games ever, and Wolfganblood Garopa is one of its most relentless bosses. This massive wolf pilot sits inside a hovering mech and bombards you with lasers, energy blasts, and insane speed. You need perfect reflexes to survive this battle, making it one of the most intense fights on the system. Number 6. Mortis in Comix Zone. Comix Zone's comic book style is legendary, and Mortis is the perfect final boss for this wild ride. As the mastermind behind Sketch Turner's nightmare, he finally steps into the comic himself, using dark powers to unleash chaos. He hurls energy blasts, teleports, summons enemies, and does everything he can to rip Sketch apart. Fast, chaotic, and intense. This battle is a perfect climax to one of the most unique beat-em-up titles ever. Number 5. Hydra in Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master. The Shinobi series is packed with great boss fights, but Hydra stands out as one of the creepiest and most intense. This hideous sludge monster rises from a toxic lake, forcing you to time your jumps perfectly to dodge its ever-encroaching hand and gigantic laser blasts. And there's nothing more frustrating than flawlessly executing those jumps only to miss the brief shot at its tiny weak point. It's a relentless, nerve-wracking fight that perfectly blends action and strategy, making it one of the best boss battles on the Genesis. Number 4. Mr. X in Streets of Rage 2. If you grew up playing Streets of Rage, you know Mr. X. This guy sits in his chair, looking like a total crime lord boss. But the second the fight starts, he pulls out a machine gun and goes all out. He's brutally fast, hits like a truck, and summons bodyguards to make your life miserable. Beating him feels like a real achievement, especially after fighting through the legendary levels of Streets of Rage 2. Number 3. Superpower Robot Yokozuna in Contra Hardcore. Contra Hardcore is already one of the hardest Genesis games, and Superpower Robot Yokozuna is a nightmare of a boss fight. This giant robot smashes through the screen, unleashing devastating attacks that test every skill you've learned in the game. You need perfect dodging, precision aiming, and nerves of steel to take him down. It's peak Contra madness and one of the most memorable fights on the system. Number 2. Death Egg Robot in Sonic the Hedgehog 2. You've got no rings, no checkpoints, no mercy. The Death Egg Robot is one of the most stressful final bosses in gaming history. There's zero margin for error, which not only increases the difficulty, but also inspires sweaty palms, shaky fingers, and a fair amount of brain fog. This hulking metal giant relentlessly chases you, launching spiked arms while you desperately try to land a few well-timed hits. Mess up once, and it's back to the start. The intensity, the music, and the pure satisfaction of landing that final blow make this one of the greatest Sega boss fights ever. Beating it means conquering one of Sega's finest challenges. Number 1. Shao Kahn in Mortal Kombat 2. Unlike modern fighters where the boss is often playable, there was no legit way to control the ruler of Outworld. So facing Shao Kahn felt like an event. The arena crowd roars with every one of his hits, and he fights like an unstoppable force. He laughs at your attacks, taunts you mid-fight, and punishes every mistake with brutal strength and near-unbreakable defense. His shoulder tackle and spear hit like a truck, draining your health in seconds if you don't avoid them. Shao Kahn isn't just a boss, he's a brick wall of pain, making him the most iconic and punishing final boss on the Genesis.